Sun as an elucidating example concerning the duration of their existence. In all the mechanical watches of various systems they use this said simple secret for regulating what is called the tension of the said spring, or the corresponding part of the general mechanism of the watch, and it is called, it seems, the regulator. By means of this regulator, it is possible to make the mechanism of a watch, wound for instance for 24 hours, go a whole month. And on the contrary, thanks to this regulator, it is possible to make the same winding for 24 hours finish in 5 minutes. In the common presence of every being existing merely on the basis of itoklanos, something similar to the regulator in a mechanical watch is present and is called transamkeep. This something means not to give oneself up to those of one's associations resulting from the functioning of only one or another of one's brains. But even if they should understand such a simple secret, it will be all just the same. They still would not make the necessary being effort, quite accessible even to the contemporary beings, and thanks to which, by the foresight of nature, beings in general acquire the possibility of what is called harmonious association, by virtue of which alone energy is created for active being existence in the presence of every three-brained being, and consequently in them themselves. But at the present time, this energy can be elaborated in the presences of your favorites only during their quite unconscious state, that is to say, during what they call sleep. But in your favorites, especially in your contemporary favorites who exist constantly passively under the direction of only one of the separate spiritualized parts of their common presence, and thereby constantly manifest themselves entirely by their factors for negative properties also lawfully arisen in them, and hence by negative manifestations, there proceeds in them that same disproportionate expenditure of the contents of their various bobbin candlenostes, that is to say, the possibilities placed in them by nature according to law, of action by only one or only two of their brains, are always experienced, in consequence of which the contents of one or two of their bobbin candlenostes are prematurely exhausted, whereupon, just like those mechanical watches in which the winding is run down, or the force of their regulators is weakened, they cease to act. Some time later, I shall explain to you in detail not only why, when beings existing only according to the principle itoklanos exist by the direction of only one or two of their spiritualized sources, and not harmoniously, that is to say, with all three combined and in agreement, that particular brain of theirs in which there were superfluous associations is prematurely used up in them, and consequently dies during the period of its existence. But also why, owing to this, the other bobbin candlenostes also are used up, even without their own action. But here you must also know that even on your planet, one still occasionally finds one of your favorites whose duration of planetary existence extends to 5 of their centuries. You will then understand very well that in the case of certain of your favorites, even of recent times, who by some means or other find out and correctly transubstantiate in their reason concerning certain details of the law of association proceeding in the separate brains of beings, and also concerning the reciprocal action of these independent associations, and who exist more or less according to what I've said. The Bobbin Candlegnosts, formed in their separate being brains, are not used up, as they are among the other beings there, but their common presence acquires the possibility of existing much longer than the other three-brained beings there. During my stay there for the last time, I myself personally met several of these terrestrial contemporary three-brained beings who were already 2, 3, and even about 4 of their centuries old. I met them mostly among a small brotherhood of the three-brained beings there, composed of beings from almost all of their what are called religions, and whose permanent place of existence was in the middle of the continent Asia. The beings of that brotherhood, it seems, partly elucidated for themselves the mentioned laws of association in being brains, and in part such information reached them from ancient times through genuine initiates there. As for that same contemporary community whose beings have become the chief victims of that particularly maleficent invention of the beings of the said ancient civilization, they not only now use it in the process of their own existence, but they try to infect strongly the beings of all the other communities with the same evil. Moreover, owing to that maleficent sport of theirs, these unfortunates not only still further diminish the duration of their own existence, already trifling without this, but thanks to that action of theirs, they will, in my opinion, eventually entail for their community what quite recently occurred to a large community there named Russia. I thought about it during my stay there before my final departure from that planet. And I first began thinking about it when I learned that the power-possessing beings, also of that no less great contemporary community, were already utilizing that maleficent means of theirs, sport, for their own Hasnamussian aims, exactly as the power-possessing beings of the community Russia had, for their similar aims, utilized what is called the question of Russian vodka. Just as the power-possessing beings of the community Russia then tried by every kind of artifice to instill into the weak wills of the ordinary beings the necessity of the intensive use of the said Russian vodka, so also the power-possessing beings of that community England are now already also maneuvering to intrigue the ordinary beings of their community with this same sport, and to urge them to it by every means. The apprehensions which then arose in me are already, it seems, being justified. And I conclude this from the etherogram I recently received from the planet Mars, in which, among other things, it was said that though there are more than 2.5 million of what are called unemployed beings in that community England, yet the power-possessing beings there take no measures concerning this, but endeavor to spread still more widely among them that same famous sport of theirs. Just as in the large community Russia, the contents of all what are called newspapers and magazines used to be always devoted to the question of Russian vodka, so now in that community England, more than half of the text of all their evil sowers is devoted to that famous sport.